So, recording on, welcome everyone to making sense of the compliance in the core module. Most important thing, you know, if sometimes when I'm coming out of audits, and you know what we see is a struggle for people to know what to do, and if I could just impart some of the translation of it, it's not as complex as people think. It's a story. It's a story and a storyline of a participant having service. You know, and if you think you can't know it back the front and inside out like some of us do, you're wrong, because you can. You absolutely can. You just got to get some underpinning knowledge about certain aspects of quality and compliance, and then it will start to make sense. I mean, I've been around for, 30 years in health and human service. I started quality auditing in 2004, and I learned a set of standards. I learned a set of standards which had nothing to do with disability services. It was drug and alcohol. But from learning one set of standards, they're all built on the same the mother of standards, ISO 9001. And when you learn the patterns of these things, you know it's going to be the same whether you are here in the NDIS or over there in aged care. Sure, there'll be some nuances, but if you know the systems and you know the concepts, you're always going to know what to look for. So when I first stepped back into disability after, disappearing from it in about 2012, 2013, when the NDIS rolled out, I became known as an expert in no time. I knew the standards inside and out within 2 months, because I'm only applying the same knowledge across every other set of standards I ever worked with. And of course, I have a lot of experience in disability, aged care services, et cetera, but to learn those standards and that compliance, believe me, it's so doable. And I just want to see people know it and operate under it. And so that you're not cleaning up for audit, you are doing quality work all the way through. So let's start where I believe would be most advantageous for you. Oh, and Ali's going, let's do the bit first about Ali. Can you put those worksheets in to...
They're in the chat.
And I want everyone to download them now so that we don't have any fuss and bother when we're all trying to download. I've run many workshops where some people can't download it, then we've got to troubleshoot it and people have to wait. So let's download it now.
Where?
In the
They should be in the chat.
So look for a little thing on Zoom that says chat, and you're going to go into that chat and you're going to download these worksheets. I want you to download all 4 of them. And I want you to be able to have them on your computer, because I want you to be, you're going to be working on these in a breakout room at some point. But I also want you to have them to be able to use in your work as well. So put when you've downloaded them and you know you've got them, can you put a little icon on your, or just to give me a thumbs up if you've got your screen. So you've got them, okay? I've got them. If you haven't got your screen on, then if you would just do a thumbs up for me on the icons, so I know that everyone's got them and we're not going to have to worry about this down the track. Now, if I can't see you here at least once, I can't give you a certificate of attendance, okay? So I do need to know that you're in this room. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Because then we can give you a certificate of attendance with the content that we've taught today. Now, Jess, are you here? Now, Jess?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I just need to check that people are here. If you go walking out, you're not present, and I can't, in all good conscience, give you a certificate of attendance, okay? And we're relying on everyone to participate as well. Good, good, good. Have them. So I pretty much think everyone's got them now. Good. All right. Now we don't have to worry. So let's go and talk about a few fundamentals that I want you to have. And I'd love it if you onboard your senior staff or your middle management staff, probably a bit much for most support workers, a bit more than they need, but there will be some, and you'll see them. You'll see it because the light comes on in their eyes. Yeah. When they're interested in this stuff, that's how I choose quality managers or people that I'm going to groom for quality managing, because I see the light come on in their eyes during training. Okay. And you see little pieces of people that you know what, they get that. I can see they get that, or they love that. Okay. So please start educating from, pick your support workers, because, for some of them, their eyes will glaze over with this. But so choose your people that you think you can progress, but definitely anyone who is in any kind of senior support worker, key worker, team leader, manager, business owner, everyone should have this knowledge I'm about to say embedded in their brain. Okay, so let's go. So I'm just going to I don't think I've even shared screen yet, so let me go back and share screen, and we'll just do a little bit of what I'm calling, the fundamentals, basically. So onto presentation mode. All right, so I won't be able to see you for a bit while I just move that presentation. Okay, so we're going to try to get everybody living and breathing and just understanding and not, the core module, what compliances are embedded in that core module and how you can do it on an everyday basis and not having big cleanups to take care of later. Now, I'm not even mentioning all of the incidents and complaints, and or sometimes you don't even get the incidents because you don't know what one is. Sometimes you haven't got complaints because you don't know what one is. And if you think that I'm joking when I say that, I'm absolutely not. Yeah. So sometimes the biggest red flag for us as an auditor is when someone doesn't have any complaints or any incidents, because unless you've got no clients, it's impossible. Okay. So first thing is the necessary foundations for running a service compliantly, no matter which service you're in, but here we're dealing with the NDIS, is that you've got to understand that compliance or non-compliance is decided via an audit process, okay? One that is done by the commission or one that is done by an independent internal auditor so that you know your gaps and you can improve, or one that you do on a regular basis of scheduled audits within your own service. Maybe you do staff file audits in one quarter of the year. Maybe you do participant file audits in the next. So compliance or non-compliance is decided via an audit. To assess compliance, we have to have evidence. That's the bottom line. We're wanting evidence. So wherever I'm starting a service, running a service, building a new service, I'm all the time thinking about the layers that I need to put into every motion I complete so that the evidence is being collected already. We don't want to start a service and have to go back and fix it so that it's collecting evidence. We want to start something the way we want it to progress and finish, and the way we would want it to be when it goes to audit. So we always need to factor in, I'm going to do this, what is my evidence of it? Okay, so for people who tell us that they've made a quality improvement and they have no evidence to show me, why waste all that effort? I like a bit of kudos here and there. Okay, so I want to show it. I want to show all the quality improvements I make. So we need evidence. So what's one type of evidence in terms of an NDIS service and measuring compliance? Who can tell me? And because there's such a small group of us, please, by all means, please, speak if you want to, or talk in the chat. I don't mind which. what is one type of evidence in an NDIS service in terms of finding compliance?
Care plans.
Care plans is a type of evidence. Now, it will be the quality of that evidence which will determine whether it is actually, what's the word? Good evidence, okay? So, can you think of another type of evidence for me? So that's a sort of that's a coal-face service level piece of evidence.
What about progress notes?
I think we better turn it on mute then and use the chat. If someone's got something going on, and not everybody, but if someone's got something going on in the background and that's the way it's going to be, then you better turn it off. But what's another type of evidence? We've got a coal face evidence, which is the care plan or the support plan. What's another type of evidence that's going to prove that you have your compliance taken care of?
A service agreement.
Say it again.
NDIS service agreement.
Yes, that's another type. I'd still say that would be a coal face, similar to the assessment, to the care plan. But yep, that's another type of evidence. Can you give me, these aren't different categories of evidence though, so you're giving me those two that you gave me, and I'm glad you gave them to me. They belong to the first one type of evidence, which is that sort of service level type of evidence. So we haven't, and it's okay, it's good for me to know. So we haven't reached up for any other types of evidence. Did anybody want to try and give me any other type of evidence? When I say type, I'm not saying what is another piece of evidence. I'm saying what is another type of evidence. So you've given me service agreement and you've given me a care plan. What's another type, another category of evidence?
So progress notes.
Incident report.
It's still another seven. I'm glad that you're coming up with the evidence progress notes. It's still another type, which is exactly the same category as service agreement and care plan. And yeah, that sits in there. And the other person, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Incident report.
Yeah. Now, an incident report, an incident form or an incident report? Incident form.
Investigation, I think.
Okay, so that is still, it's got 1.5 of it, 1.5 legs in service level and half a leg in management level. And I hope by what I just said, you're understanding now what I'm meaning by types of evidence, categories of evidence. Who wants to have another stab at a different category of evidence?
There's one in the chat, Gina.
Ooh. Yeah, your policies and procedures, that is one type or category of evidence, correct. Those forms and tools that you talked about, they're another category of evidence. And do you want to have a stab at one other category of evidence? It's okay if we don't get it, because we'll be talking about it in a minute. Yes, so the incident register, that is got that's got a leg in service delivery and a leg in governance or management. Yep. Anyone else want to throw anything else out?
Evidence related to participants' medications, like medication chart and medication purpose form.
Yep. So that's more evidence of the front line. And so that's good. I'm glad you're thinking. So you're thinking, that's good. Insurances, absolutely. Your insurances would be up there with the next layer up from service level. That's up there in management to say that I've got my insurances, therefore I'm looking after corporate risk. Yep. Okay. So well done, everyone. So if the evidence all point to different results, this is what I want you to really take in about when you're running your service, how you're planning it, when you're resourcing it, when you're collecting things, when you're looking at documents or no documents, which is the problem. If the evidence all point to different results, it's hard to have confidence of any one of those results, okay? So remember that. We don't just look at one thing. And we'll talk more about that in a second. If the evidence all point to different results, we can't have any confidence in any one of those things. So we look further. Now, always say no complaints in the complaint register or no incidents in an incident register to an auditor is like a red flag to a bull, okay? We can't see anything. We're going to dig deeper. And we'll dig like little, what are the digging animals? What digs? There are animals that dig. I don't know. Are they like bunnies? We'll dig until we find something because we're already worried. We're already worried that nobody can find. They've got 20 clients, 10 staff, whatever, just out of my head, and they can't find one incident or complaint. We're concerned. Okay. So we look further to try and find and, try and corroborate at least one story that we're seeing. So this increases our confidence levels about what's happening. So if you see it how we see it, and that's not just about being an auditor, some people just audit and they've never run a service. So the biggest difference with those of us that are consultants, and there's a few, but not as many, and there's a lot of people out there consulting and they are just auditors. I've met teachers that become auditors. I don't know where their levels of experience from running these organizations has come from. It hasn't. So it's about increasing the confidence levels about what's happening. And if you need to factor this in to your everyday management, okay? So the more evidence we can see, the more we will be able to say, this is what we think is happening, okay? So if you know how we think and you know how audit and compliance works, you have a much better chance of embedding it into your own organization. Another necessary foundation to understand the concept that we're doing. We are triangulating. Please turn the mute button on if you've got somebody throwing furniture around in the background. Thank you. Necessary foundation, the triangulation of evidence. Triangulation facilitates the validation of that data, your evidences, through cross-verification from more than two sources. One source isn't enough. We need at least two sources, and then we're looking for a third to verify what we're seeing, okay? And sometimes we'll go looking for more than that when it's all too confusing. So, you may not know this, but an auditor under the quality audit rules, when they find, let's say they ask you for 10 clients, that's what they've got to see, 10% of your 100 clients, they ask for 10 client files. If they find the first 5 have non-conformities, they are supposed to pick up another file to replace that, to not to stop looking at the non-conformity, but they're meant to go, right, now I have to see 11 files. Now 12, if you've got 5 non-conformities out of 10 files, they should be looking at an additional 5, to be able to make up their mind. That's not happening very often, but it should be happening because that gives a much clearer picture of the representative nature of the evidence they'll be seeing, okay? So triangulation is what we're aiming for in everyday business running. So when you're making something, managing something, fixing something, you're thinking about how is what I've got here going to allow for the verification of evidences. I need to be able to back it up, okay? I need this to be able to be backed up as a manager, but also because I'm going to go to audit constantly. The audits are never going to stop. They're going to keep happening. That's the nature of health and human services. They keep happening. May as well build it from the beginning. And as you're making sure that happens, you're embedding quality and safety into your organization, okay? So triangulation of evidence. So let's have an example of that. I'm auditing one of your organizations. I see your policies and procedures and they meet the standards. Yep. That's stage 1. We've written down, yep, conforms. Wonderful. Do you think that we're rejoicing and knowing, right, this is the shoe-in, this organization is going to be fine? We're not. Sometimes it's really nice when the policies and procedures meet the standards, but there's a big but. Let's just say we look at your blank form. So we're not looking at your actual templates that have been, you know, that you use to implement the core module services. We just have a look at some of your blank ones. We ask you to find them for us, because when I ask you to find me a form, I think I had a person at audit say, I thought that's what you'd be doing, that you'd be finding the forms and you'd be looking at them. And I said, oh, no, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I want you guys to find them for me. I want to see that you know which goes with which. So that's where I start to see people fumbling, or not, some don't, but that's where I start to see that they start pulling up 3 different types of the same form, because we've already seen in their folders that they've given us 5 of the same form, that they're all different versions, you know? So there's some problem there, and that problem speaks back to one of the standards called information management. And also it speaks to knowledge. It means that that person that's presented in front of me for the audit actually doesn't know, may not know which one is the real one, or they just haven't managed their information. Which one is it? A little bit more information is going to tell me about that. Now, with that situation, that person was a smart person. And in fact, they were doing the best job that they could do for someone who knew nothing about NDIS. So their information management was lacking. Okay. So we had lots of forms that just were all different versions and old. Okay. So let's say in our example, back to my example, we're looking at compliance in the core module. We've found the policies and procedures meet the standards. We've found all their blank forms and templates are absolutely perfect. And then we go to the file, we do an audit to see if those, if they're practicing what they're preaching, if they're practicing and they're implementing what they're supposed to be doing. We go to the files. The audit shows that the complaint forms and templates that they showed me, they're not being used. Maybe they're not being used at all. Maybe they're not completed, and there are so many empty fields in there that we have to call it not implemented. Or maybe there is a different set of forms to the one they showed us. It shows us compliance isn't happening. So I want you to start thinking at those very basic levels about everything that you do. If you decide to pick up a different form just because it happens to be there and it's easier, you're just stepping outside of the quality and compliance kind of regime. You know, that's not how it's done. So we have, I say the most simplest things. If you've got different versions of things, please put them into an archive folder. Don't throw them away. We're not asking you to throw them away, but we don't want to swim through all of the rubbish that you don't know what to do with. So it more than that, it just shows us, well, you're not going to get a very high rating on your information management. And information management is a big standard in governance, okay? So I'm giving you the foundations. Remember, we haven't started talking about the actual core module yet. But without this fundamental knowledge, you're kind of missing the ABCs. So think of this like the ABCs. So our example, policies and procedures meet the standards, blank forms and templates are available and they meet the standards. The file audit shows that they're not being used. Yep. Or the file audit shows that the complaint forms and the knowledge, the complaint forms and the knowledge demonstrated by staff and owners is just not there. Sorry about that one. That shouldn't say file audit shows that the complaint forms. It is number 4 is the knowledge demonstrated by the staff or the owners of the business is absent. Okay, so we can actually assess the fact that people have no knowledge. And in the beginning, the auditors were not doing anything much about that. But now people are, auditors are. It's like, you shouldn't be there if you don't have the knowledge to do what you're doing. And if you want to own a business and you don't have the knowledge, then you better employ somebody who does. So it's becoming very strict. It's always been that way for me when I meet a provider that doesn't know what they're doing. I find it really disheartening. So you have a couple of choices. You employ somebody, or, you know, I can say learn quickly, but I said this to someone the other day, a person who's bought a business, and look, they're very nice, and they're not. I don't think that the providers that go into these businesses are generally, they're not bad people, but the commission let them in. You know, I put the responsibility firmly back on the government for letting people who have no idea what they're doing run a business in NDIS, a disability business with them, the most difficult to work with clients that we could possibly have in Australia, to be honest. So I don't blame the providers. I think the responsibility lies with the gatekeeper and who let them in and under what circumstances they were let in. So that knowledge is really important. And so we can rate on all of these things. So if you think it's just about paperwork, it's not. You've got to have that knowledge. You know, I mean, everyone, I like it when I see a provider that wants to go away, or staff member that wants to go away and learn. And that's great. I'm really pleased to hear that. But how fast can you learn it? And I put it to someone the other day, and I saw the look of understanding on their faces when I said, so why should some people like me, who worked our first 5 years or 3 years, if you're fast tracker, and become a manager of a service like this? And that's our paid our dues, right? Because no one was going to hire us before the NDIS came into play. No one's going to hire anyone with that experience. You could never get a job as a manager or a team leader until you had paid your dues and your resume showed it and your references showed it. Now you can own a chain of donut shops and then buy a big NDIS service. Yeah. So I guess you see where I'm going. So the knowledge really matters. So how is it okay when we had to earn that with our knowledge and skill, and now it's just given? So you can see what we're up against in that system. So now you can see an example of where two pieces of evidence corroborate each other. Policy and procedure meets the standard. The blank forms and the templates are available and they meet the standard, but the practice is not meeting the standard. The evidence, the actual practice does not corroborate the fact that the policies and procedures are compliant. Okay, so it falls down there. And that's what we mean by we need enough evidence to be able to triangulate, to be able to go, okay, those first two things, they're working, okay, it's looking good. But now we've seen this and no knowledge, nah, it all falls down, okay? So you need to be thinking like that. You need to be thinking about what your organization needs to be running this service and these services under this core module, okay? So that's the basic understanding first up. And please teach that. I will give you this presentation. Please make it part of onboarding for senior workers and up. So if you're thinking of it like this, and these are not figures, please don't think that I've worked this out statistically. I'm giving you my best guess, yeah? The common evidences. The policy and procedure has about a 40% weight. The forms and templates, which are for implementation, they are the implementing things. They implement the policies and procedures. They have about a 20% weight. The interviews and the file audits from your staff and your participants, which is the practice, does the practice actually add up and back up the fact that you're doing the right thing or doing well? About 20%. And the knowledge demonstrated by staff owners, another 20%. You can see the breakdown of what's important in what you're doing in owning and operating or managing or team leading a business. Now, of course, this knowledge becomes really necessary for the owner operator, the manager, the team leaders in the thick of it. It's really important for them. There are parts of this that are really, there are parts of this that that trickle down for the support worker, but in a completely different language at most times. But you will see, I went to an audit in the Hunter, must be a year and a half ago now, and they had an admin worker, and that admin worker was helping at the audit. And that admin worker, by the language she spoke to me, I could see she had more knowledge of quality and compliance than both of those owners of the business put together. And she's now their quality manager. You can see that people understand this. So please, do your best to try to change your thought process so you're thinking all the time when you're starting something new. I want to embed the processes into this so that I'm always, sure that I'm very close to, if not aligned to, quality and compliance under the scheme that I work. Now, another thing that I'll say that's really necessary, before the NDIS, and I say back in the old days, when we'd get a new job with a new not-for-profit, because we didn't really have for-profits in those days, the first thing that I would do as a manager of a program was to go in my first week, apart from meeting staff and finding out what they liked and what they didn't like, just so that they knew they were being, instead of going in and changing it, you should never go in and just change everything. They'll hate you. But I would say, right, can you get me a copy of the funding agreement? And I would go through every single part of that funding agreement. Then I would get a copy of the standards if I had not been familiar with the standards in that particular scheme, and go through those. I wanted to know exactly what was governing what I'm doing. What was the overarching framework that governed and said what I'm supposed to be doing here? It's really important to do that. Now, many a time I've spoken to a new CEO for an organization and they're not the owner operator. And to my knowledge, in the time that I've spoken to some people, they have not got their head around the standards. I think what I see sometimes is people going out and putting out fires and not focusing from a strategic point of view. What are my compliance obligations in my role as a manager? Right, I want to see the quality safety standards. I want to, and you don't seldom have funding obligations, but some in the social services of Australia, they have funding grants. So some of you NDIS providers will have grants. They're the first things we ask for. What is the landscape of my compliance obligations as a manager? It would be the first thing I'd do if I walked into a job as a manager in an NDIS service and I hadn't worked in it before. Okay. And as a CEO or a business owner, doubly that, triply that. You need to know more and you need to know it better. Okay. If you think that you can just hire someone and rely on them for knowing the standards, good luck to you. That seldom happens except in enormous companies that have the infrastructure and the money to be able to pay the big dollars to get people like that. So really, you've got to know. So here's a bit of a, here's what I want you to really take away from this as well. We're looking at the core module because it's the biggest. It's the fundamental part of the NDIS framework and standards. You must have this before you really can do any of the others, except the exception is SDA. You can run an SDA without this because it's understood that you won't be delivering any services to a person, and you can't if you just opt for an SDA. But so core module is the prerequisite. It's the gateway to delivering any other higher risk services. Okay. So what I want you to understand is that there are 4 divisions in the core module. Just off the top of your heads, guys, do you know what those 4 divisions are? Who'd like to have a stab? And no Googling it. Does anyone want to have a stab at the 4 divisions? I'm just going to the chat. I can't interest anyone in having a stab. Put up your hand or thumbs up for me if you are. Put up your hand or thumbs up for me if you're an owner and manager. Owner, manager, owner, manager. Have I only got 2 owner managers here? Shiva's. Okay, righto. So we've got 2. All right, put up your hand if you're a manager. Manager. Now, Jess and Leonard, what's your positions? Look, chat. You're applying to become a provider? Now, Jess? Yes. Oh, cool, cool. Nice to see you here. Good one. Okay. Leonard. Manager, owner?
Yes, sorry, I'm an operations manager.
Operations manager? Okay, cool.
Yep.
So is compliance under your remit? Yep.
Yes.
Yep, good, good. Umesh?
Yes.
Yep. Owner, operator, manager, which one?
At the moment, I'm just starting compliance. So
You've started a job in compliance.
yes, under Leonard.
Okay.
So I'm just starting.
Excellent. I'm so glad to see you here. It's great.
Leonard is my operation manager.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Okay. So I think I've already said, you know, here's where you should get your head around it. You can see that some people are already doing that, and good one. For all of you that are here, 90% or 80% of providers are probably not. Okay. So, and I can sum it up really nicely. Like my very first NDIS commission audit down in Melbourne, lovely lady, lovely couple. They were lovely. No, you know, and she asked so many lovely questions through the audit. And I eventually said, you know, they're all such very good questions. And do you want to know something? She said, what? I said, they're all in your policy and procedures, which I read last night. And I said, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, I don't think you've read your policies and procedures, have you? And she said, no. And that's what I call the 80%. And the 20%, they're the ones that do have some familiarity with them. So 80% don't. And that's what we see most of the time. So, next. Division 1. There are 4 divisions in the core module. Remember, most of what you're going to do is in the core module. If not, it is going to be the fundamental underpinnings of some of the other things that you do. For example, you might also be registered for module 1, which is high intensity personal activities. And it does have a very, very intensive and broad set of documents for it, for catheter management and wound care, etc. But it still relies on some of the fundamental consents that come from the onboarding of a person, because module 1, it doesn't exist on its own. It either has to exist with community nursing or it exists as an add-on to the core module. 2A, implementing restrictive practice. It can't exist on its own. It has to exist as an add-on to the core module. Therefore, many of those things that are assumed as done within a 2A are things like they've already got a support plan with you. They've already got a consent, etc. So they're not separate. It is underpinning. The core module is the stepping stone, the prerequisite to all of the other modules, okay? Except where I said one exception, where you only register for SDA, okay? So division 1, I'm still going to give you one more option. Does anyone know what division 1 is?
I don't know what divisions are. No.
Huh?
I don't know what the divisions are, but can I just clarify? So when you're talking about with the core modules, you're talking about the level of care that you're providing. So if you're, so when are you talking about
not at all. Division 1 is So core module is the prerequisite to being able to go on to any of the other modules, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you must have core module first. It is divided up into, remember, we're here for compliance, right?
Yeah.
We're here for how do I interpret the core module and see it as a compliance framework? How do I do my everyday job viewing it as compliance steps that I have to make and quality and compliance? And it is divided, the very quality and safety standards are divided up into 4 divisions.
Right.
You see? So the first thing that I would do as an owner or as a manager that takes on a job is say, show me, there's no funding agreements anymore. Show me the funding agreement. So absent to that, then I would say, show me the quality standards associated with this, because they are the legal framework that you're running under. Okay. Okay. So the core module is a set of standards that underpin the rules, the regulations, the legislations around the services, which we frequently just call part of the core. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just say part of the core. It's part of the core. Well, that's the core module. That's part of the core module that you register for. And there's a whole stack of registration groups within that. So we're not looking at the registration groups at the moment. In fact, there's no need to be honest. We only need to know what that core module says we have to do. And it's divided into 4. I'll just read something in the chat here. Did you look it up, Nargis?
Yes.
You did you? No more. Come on. So, all right, rights and responsibilities. It was Division 1, all right? Division 2. Now, anyone who is, just like I say when I'm doing an audit and I say to everyone, tell me what what all the reportable incidents types are. And when they can't tell me, I know I've got a problem. Okay. Now, if you're a business owner, manager, operations manager, CEO, and you want to be part of the 80% and you can't tell me what Division 2 is, well, I'm glad you're here, is all I can say. Because don't be the 80%, be that 20%. The 20% would be able to tell me what Division 2 is. Can anyone tell me who didn't look it up what Division 2 is?
Governance?
Yes. Did you look it up?
No.
Oh, well done. Okay. You have to know that. Okay. It is your roadmap. Okay. Governance. Most important thing that goes wrong the most, the thing that has made all the problems that you'll get in an audit most of the time. Okay. It'll make or break you. It is your pathway to greatness or your pathway to penalties, bad service, lawsuits, etc. So it can either be, you can use it for greatness or you can let it be your biggest liability ever. Okay. Division 3 is the provision of supports. So that's most of the topics and areas where we're actually delivering supports. So, and then now Division 4, which is the environment that we're delivering them in. So these are the quality and safety standards for the NDIS framework, okay? This is what you're doing day in, day out. It's all in here and translated into policies and procedures, all right? So what we do is we have a framework of legislation. So the NDIS Act was written and it continues to be updated. So it's written in 2013. Eventually, in whatever year it was a bit late in the day, really, 2018, I think, they wrote some quality and safety standards. And these quality and safety standards, they took the Act and turned them into a set of standards, quality and safety standards, drawing on other bits and pieces, not just the legislation. So parts of them refer to the legislation, but they also refer to other legislations as well. So the core module quality and safety standards refer you to whatever the legislation is in your state. Now, that's what the standards say, but when I or someone like me comes along and turns the quality and safety standards into a set of operational policies, we then unpack it more than they are unpacked in the standards by saying, well, this organisation operates in New South Wales, so we'll be putting in little bits of information around perhaps work cover, which is in New South Wales. You've got you've got safe work in South Australia. You've got something else in Queensland. So it's legislation from the top, which is turned into the quality and safety framework, which then your providers are supposed to turn them into policies and procedures from that. Okay, but there's a lot of consultants and groups who do that for you. All right. So what we're going to focus on is getting really familiar with what this means in real terms, in terms of Division 1, rights and responsibilities, Division 2, governance, Division 3, provision of supports, and Division 4, the support environment. Okay. So where do you think we find the most non-conformities just in general? The least
Also
understood.
governance.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
least understood. And what did I say was either your biggest asset or your biggest liability?
Biggest assets and liability, I think.
No, what did I say could be either your biggest asset or be your biggest liability?
The staff, the workers.
Well, yeah, and they sit very firmly in governance. So turn off the microphone, if you would. So what I was saying was governance, if you don't know about it, it will be your biggest liability. If you do know about it, it can send you to greatness. Okay. So now the other thing that I'll say is another story. A provider who said to me, oh, we've just hit $1 million in profit. Now, I had been working with this provider had bought my policies and procedures. That's about all I can say from them. It wasn't like they weren't kind of, yes, workers. Yes. They weren't working with me on a regular basis. They just bought policies and procedures and they'd call up and have a chat. And then we did their internal audit and he said to me, we've just hit $1 million in profit. And then I did his internal audit and I felt very differently about that person after that because of the enormity of the non-conformances in that organisation and the high levels of complexity of the people that they were caring for. And it was very difficult. I found it very personally difficult to look at him the same after that because it's really easy to make money if you're not doing this. It's really easy to make money. It's only a matter of time before something went wrong. And even if it didn't go wrong, it's not right. You know, it wasn't right that people don't have thorough assessments, that people's risk assessments aren't reviewed on a regular basis. It's not right. And so it's very easy to make a lot of money if you're in the NDIS, not anywhere, but in the NDIS. It's just a money tree, but you want to do it right. Okay. So I want you to know these 4. If you're a manager, a team leader, a compliance officer, operations manager, CEO, business owner, you should know the 4 divisions of a core module. Okay. And you should be really, depending on that level of position within the ones I've just said, the governance is going to matter to you. Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
You can.
With the government, you get the NDIS information pack, you know, that comes with all everything.
What do you mean? What does that mean? You get the NDIS information pack and it comes with everything.
We rang NDIS, wanting to get clarity and more clear, like a lot clearer on what you're teaching us today, which is why I'm here.
They're not going to teach you this. No.
No, well, yeah, well, and with with basically, particularly these 4 areas you're talking about now, and what all they did was send us a Quality and Commission's information pack with about.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah, it won't. It's really not much use, is it? Doesn't tell you how to run a
I can't.
service.
Like what you were telling me, I'm like going. So at the end, so they're not actually providing us
No.
the information, are they?
No. So they're in many ways they're responsible for everything that it has happened in many ways. So no, they're not. They're not giving you this. You know, they didn't think it through. They never thought it through.
No.
And you know, I was on the phone to the commission, I don't know, 6 months ago, and you know, I get it's very hard to see so much awful behavior. But I also come back, you know, and I say, what are you doing about it? And writing this, writing that, write to that minister. And then I was on the phone. The woman from the commission, quite high up, did ring me back and said, I just want you to know, Gina, I really want you to know and pass on that we are doing things about these issues, you know, what's going on with the providers and supports and stuff like that. You know, we are doing something about these providers. And I went, I think you've misinterpreted my message. And I said, you know what, I don't blame the providers. I hold the NDIS Commission responsible for this because you know what? And she said, what? I said, you opened a gate and all they did was walk through it. You can't blame them. And then you didn't give them any tools to do it. You said, all you need is an ABN. And she said, oh, no, you've got to be, I went, no, all you need is an ABN because anyone can bluff their way through an audit and they can pay somebody to go for them. So essentially, all you need is an ABN. You opened the gate and now you're complaining with what you've got. So,
very true.
You know, so they don't do enough for you. They just don't. And so that's why people like myself, we step in and you see these things popping up all over the place. No, they don't teach you. And anyway, if you ring the NDIS Commission and you've got to take the best of 5 answers because you will get a different answer in that call.
100%. That's exactly why. Yeah,
so not very helpful.
It's absolutely baffling.
No, it's not very helpful. And as a true governance evangelist, like quality compliance governance evangelist, what I see going on at the NDIS and the NDIS Commission shocks me. And I'll tell you what, I did in 2018 before I opened my consultancy. I did go back and think, you know what, it's time for me to go back. I left Aging, Disability and Home Care, the New South Wales entity for delivering supports before the NDIS. I was in a senior policy role and I left that and I went, no, it's time for me to go back. So I got a job at the NDIS Commission in the national quality team. And my first 2 weeks, I just thought 3 weeks, and I think I got to 3 weeks and I thought, this is a joke. I couldn't even believe what was going on. I can't even begin to tell you the things that I saw. And I thought, I just can't do this. And my director had been a quality manager at Telstra. That's it. No health, no human service, 2 years.
Wow.
2 years. I just thought, can't do it. So it's not like I didn't kind of get on board. I was ready to get on board. But when I saw the administrative costs of the scheme were the biggest cost, and then I looked next to me to see, I don't know if you know the levels of government, but so I was a senior, and then you have a level 1, which is sort of, you know, admin entry level. And I sat next to a very lovely lady who was admin entry level, and they were flying her and 10 others for some training down to Geelong. Now, that's just one scenario in a sea of thousands, right? And so we were going from a rural area where I was to another rural area, and they thought that was acceptable to do that with the NDIS money. And it would just happen every week, week on week, other areas all across Australia. I thought, I just can't be part of that. Just couldn't, you know, why can't you just train on Zoom? So anyway, that's my story. And it's not like I never tried to go back and whatever. I couldn't live with it ethically. And the fact that I just could not live with them not doing anything positive with we can do more by doing things like this, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
So really important. Sorry that they don't give you too much in the way of assistance. It's just unfortunate. So what I want you to know then is you're here to learn the compliance and how to make sure it's in every day of what you do as a NDIS provider. But I want you to understand this. The compliance doesn't exist. Good compliance can't exist without good risk management, without good governance, and this all becomes a reporting framework. So governance, risk, and compliance are three words that are really like Siamese twins. What are triplets? I don't know what they belong together. Okay. So when you think compliance, I want you to think governance, risk, and compliance. Okay. So they're all the same. So the one good news about this is if I show you the compliance framework, which we've just looked at it at its highest level, I'm about to show it to you on a graphic in a minute. If I show you the compliance framework, you are also looking at the risk framework and the governance framework and the reporting framework. So that's the good news, okay? So learn that and you know all three of them. So when you think compliance, I want you to think, I'm not only managing compliance, I'm trying to ensure the compliance, the governance, and the risk are all managed at the same time because they do not exist on their own, okay? And if you think of this question, let's do a little bit of philosophy for a second. Let's say, can I have good risk management if my compliance isn't managed? Can I? Is it possible?
No.
It's not, is it? Right? Can I have good governance if my compliance isn't managed? No. So, in other words, the three of them, they live in synchronicity. They are in sync, okay? So compliance, risk, and governance together. Governance, risk, and compliance. They're inseparable. They've got slightly separate things to do, but they're inseparable. You can't have one being good without the other ones being good as well, okay? So your NDIS government Division 2 looks like this. Overarching is your governance and operational management, and we have an operations manager here today. We have some other people who are managing. We have owner-operators. So overall, your Division 2, which is the most important thing to make sure that the horse doesn't bolt, that things are getting done, is governance and operational management. And off that, the things that you need to know about the Division 2 core module is it mandates a few things about continuity of supports. It mandates quite a few things about human resources. It mandates some things about incident management. It mandates things about feedback and complaints. It mandates things about information management. And remember, I said when I start to see these things all over the place, I start to think, yeah, that standard information management's looking a bit dodgy. Yeah. Okay. Because it's not just about having a OneDrive that's got password protection on it. It's not. It's about the way you manage your information. Your next one is quality management, and your next one is risk management. They are all equally as important. And this is here because something needs to be overarching. Okay. And this is Division 2. So it's really important. It's not the only thing that's important in that core module, but without it, you can't manage. You're just not managing. It's what we call oversight. And if you're not looking from a helicopter down on everything that's going on in your organization, then you may as well have blinkers on or have, be blindfolded. And that's pretty much what you are, is blindfolded, without having Division 2 or governance in place. governance and operational management, you need to have oversight over how are continuity of supports being managed, how is the human resource being managed, how are incidents being managed, how is feedback and complaints being managed, how is our information systems being managed, how is our quality management being managed, and how is our risk management being managed. Now, this is just for the NDIS scheme. They're different in different schemes, yeah? But this is what they've decided are the most important things for the disability sector as far as governance frameworks go, yeah? And a framework is simply something that brings it all together, yeah? So that you can look at it in this hanging tree, right? So that's your governance framework. It's also your compliance framework. It's also your risk framework. And it's your organization's reporting framework. So for this very reason, can you think of, I don't expect anyone to get this, but I like to ask anyway. Can you think of, when I go down here, oops, to reporting framework, oh, quality framework, where was reporting? Here it is. Reporting framework. Think about reporting. Gosh, how do we move information around? How do I get it from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E if I need to? It might just be point A to point B, or it might be A, B, C, D, E. Depends on the size of your organization, doesn't it? What is the tool that can collect that information so that it's transported to whether it's AB, whether it's ABC, whether it's ABCDE, doesn't really matter how many points there are, but there's always going to be an A and a B. How? And who's A? Where's the bottom rung of where this information is coming from? Can you tell me that group of people? Where are we collecting it from?
Workers.
Say it again.
Workers.
Yes,
Support
it is. That is your first point of where it's being collected. And it will be about your participants, won't it? And other things. So it's starting from the support workers, and depending on how many levels in your organization, it has to work its way up. So that's your organizational reporting framework of these are the things that we want to know about. Where am I going to make sure all those things are listed so that I can gather that information from support worker at team leader, management level? You know, where am I going to put them? What am I going to put them on?
Incident reports.
No. What's the mechanism that these things can be systematically, assuredly collected on a regular basis? What tool might I think of using?
Internal audit.
I've got two things at once and I couldn't hear. Say again. I don't think either one of them was what I was thinking.
Case notes and progress report.
They form part of it, but we want this one that's a real granular level that you're thinking about. I'm thinking about something like, I'm thinking templates for staff meetings, right? So this is already, I go in and see, can you mute whoever's got noise things? I see lots of organizations that have meetings and they're not asking the right questions, because when I say, can you show me how, when I phrase it like this, can you show me how you've got oversight of continuity of supports, can you show me how you've got oversight of those? It's really hard for them to be able to show me when the only agenda items they have are incidents and complaints and staffing resources. So there's a system that you want to develop. What's already in place? And for most people, there's only a few people that aren't having staff meetings. But the staff meeting is where you can be very assured that if you have the agenda items as standing, that you will collect information, and that information will go from the staff level to whether it's team leader, whether it's management, and then whether it's executive. Yeah. So the one sure thing that you can collect it together, not just progress notes are very important. Case conferences, very important, but they're a different part of this. They're a separate entity because this is your overarching oversight. Okay. So when we talk about case notes, yeah, sure, under continuity of supports, some of the feeding into that at levels is going to be progress note and case management discussions. Yep. But we need, if we don't have these, I can assure you that if you don't have these on an agenda, they won't get discussed. This isn't going to get discussed. This isn't going to get discussed if you don't put it there. And sometimes this doesn't. You just want a system, and the best way to create that system is to put it on an agenda as a standing agenda item. It doesn't mean that's all you talk about. You can't talk about anything else. It means that these are standing agenda items. Now, if we were looking at aged care, we would have a slightly different hanging tree. Their standards have a slightly different set of, they've got incident, they've got complaint, you know, they might have considered, they've just got a slightly different focus. And so our agenda would look different under the aged care standards. But what I can say to you is, if your agenda has this, you have a perfect reporting and evidence trail, okay? And you can prove that you're having those conversations, because remember, this isn't service delivery framework. This isn't service delivery division. This is governance, and governance means oversight and decision making. Yeah. So if you get this right to start with, you can start to create the pathways where the information can travel freely to and from, and you can start to collect the information that you are required to collect, have conversations, make decisions, record them. There is no point in having a really good agenda that covers off on everything in governance and operational management if you're not taking minute notes and action notes, okay? That would just be like you've done one part of it and then you've let yourself down on the other. So agendas, the action notes, sorry, the minutes, which will, you know, really, you don't need these great long things. You just need, you know, the decision was made. And some people would do the whole conversation on their minutes. Well, I don't really need that. I just need the actions that need to be done as a result of that conversation, unless there's some really interesting stuff that you need to record. This is your oversight, governance and oversight. Okay. So if you don't have the tool collecting that information in the first place, you're not going to be able to demonstrate down the other end that you've had conversations and you've monitored this stuff. Yeah. So does that make sense? Does that make some sense, guys?
Yep.
Yep. Making some sense. Yep. Okay, good, yep. Good, and good. All right. So what are the three things that I said go together? In Division 2, what did I say? You can't have this without that, without that. You can't
risk compliance.
Yeah,
risk compliance and governance.
Yes. Yes. So compliance, risk, and governance. I see them as, it's an umbrella term that they all belong together. Yeah. And that you just can't have good of one without having good of all. Okay. What things, if you have a governance frame, if you have a good knowledge of your governance framework under the NDIS standards, what other things will you have a good knowledge of as well?
Or everything.
No, just these things. Yes, yes. But what did I say? What were these things that I said in these? This is sort of a tricky question.
Yeah.
So I said, what did I say are repeated in these? So
Risk. Do you mean the risk in the reporting
Yeah.
frameworks?
risk reporting.
And quality. Don't forget quality. I mean, I use the umbrella term governance, risk and compliance, but it's also in the NDIS. It's governance, risk, compliance, quality and reporting. And I don't use that as the umbrella term because not every set of standards or of governance standards will have quality and reporting in them. But for NDIS, you absolutely can look at these and they are identical because your governance framework is your compliance framework, is your risk framework, and is your organizational reporting framework and quality framework. Okay. So if you know one, you know them all. All right. So that's what I want to show you. Can we take a 10-minute break to make a cup of tea? Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Then we'll
Okay.
come back for a bit of workshopping. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions though before you go off? So in case you forget. Any questions? Comments?
Hi, Gina. Hi, Gina.
Yeah.
I guess for me, one of the struggles that I have when I'm looking at a policy and things that are happening and changing day to day is to make sure that we update the policy. This is what's my challenge for now. So for an instance, if I had to have a client who's often going on a boat and maybe he continues going and never coming back, we don't have every client taking a boat. It's something random. So I'm trying to see in the organization to have a policy that's reflective of situations and that the incidences are speaking to policy. So after the break or somewhere in that training, what I'm wanting to audit for Gaval is when you have an incident, is your policies speaking or vice versa? I just don't want streamlined policies where it's a one-off. I want to see the company able to update the policies and procedures based on the incidences. But for now, I feel like it's a weakness in our system.
Yeah, and I think that to add every situation can be a bit much, but what you can do is move it outside of the policy and call it a protocol or a process.
What I'm working on. This is
You know,
my dream.
you can have you know, that or other, you know, or by your experience. So like what you can have a catch-all phrase in your policy, but maybe a process or a flow chart or something else, which is a lesson learned, and people can go to that if they need to. So you can continue to add processes and workflows that don't have to be, they can be sitting inside your policy, but they could also be just linked to another document, which, you know, which is a process or a flow chart.
Okay.
And also making, you know, like we can't have, for example, there's this part of the standard that says that we have to have that every organization will have a protocol in place for any participant that has or could have the need for a medical emergency to be managed, right? Well, we can't say the medical emergency for every person in the policy, but we can say this is our protocol and the medical emergency is on their personal documents. Yep. But we'll say where that's going to be. So we would say, you know, the policy of this organization is that every participant will have been assessed to see what their possible medical emergencies can be, and that those will be recorded in their XYZ, yeah, and updated every XYZ. And so we know where to go to find the information that we need to. So you can't sort of mandate every excursion based on something that went wrong in one excursion, but you can have a catch-all policy that says that all excursions being held for the first time will be risk assessed. But
Yeah, I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's my big worry is just having generic policies that just are almost just on a cloud, and then they never get updated. But we say we've got a policy, but my scenario day to day is different to the policy. So yeah, I'm trying to work on a system where our policies are speaking
If
to our
your
reality.
your actual actions are different to the policy, then update the policy.
So wait,
Because
yeah,
the policy,
that's what I am.
definitely, absolutely. If it doesn't fit your organization and it needs adapting, adapt it. Absolutely. But you, like, I obviously didn't interpret your question correctly. So
No, you did.
no,
You did.
you're meant to add value to your policies. Absolutely.
Love it. Mhm.
But please write down where you've made an addition and why you made it in the space that lets you, either in your register, which will say policy update, why, and what date. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important to know when your policy was updated and why, because that's part of the standard as well. That
And that's what I want to do.
updates are made and you've recorded why those updates are made. That's the quality management part. So, okay, let's take a 10-minute break to have a cuppa, and we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of workshopping. Okay, I am going to resume recording. So lovely break. Thank you, everyone. Needed a cup of tea. That was fantastic. So now coming back to what we were talking about, let's just revisit. So let's ask, can the Gaval community tell me what Division 1 is, please?
Roles and responsibilities.
Say it again.
Rights and responsibilities.
Okay, lovely. Umesh, can you tell me what Division 2 is, please?
Governance.
Wonderful. Leonard, what is Division 3? Ooh. We lost Leonard. There's nothing in the chat. Well, okay, well, oh. All right, we'll take that question to Shiva. Shiva, what is Division 3?
Provision of supports.
Say it again.
Provision of supports.
Terrific. Now, Jess, what was Division 4?
Environmental supports.
What was it?
Environmental supports.
The support environment.
Environment, yeah, the support environment.
Does that make sense to everybody what the support environment would be? What does that mean? Oh, okay, all right. Well, we'll learn a little bit more about that then as we do a bit of workshopping. Leonard, are you back with us yet?
Yeah, sorry, my mic stopped working.
Oh, okay, no worries. My question for you, because we've expired all of the divisions. My question for you then is, can you tell me what triangulation of evidence means? What are we trying to do? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, no, you're not. Does anyone, do you need help with that one? Remember what we talked about when we talked about triangulation of evidence?
It's gathering source from 2 places, I think.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Leonard, is that you?
Yes, sorry, my mic keeps going in and out.
No worries. Well, you can use the chat box. Now, who was answering the question for me?
Umesh, I was saying
you were covering for your boss.
Yes.
He's got your back, Leonard.
It's gathering evidence from 2 sources.
At least 2 sources.
At least 2 sources, yeah.
Yeah, and preferably that third source, because we're talking triangle, remember? 3 sides. So we're preferably, like, one source isn't enough. If you look at someone's policies and procedures, your org's policies and procedures, and they're good against the standards, it doesn't mean that you've got it going on. Yeah. Yep. So we look at something else, and then if that's showing us something, we go, okay, just one more will tell me whether it is or it isn't. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's you can be confident in that evidence once you get to 3. Sometimes you might need to go to 4 different sources. So if you're not sure in different departments in your so I'm not expecting you all to go out and start auditing services, but you are going to be looking and auditing in your heads, just with what you're doing from day to day. You're doing audits in your heads just by managing. That's what it is. You're thinking about whether you're meeting the standards. And Leonard, I'll give you a question. What did I say are the 3 things that you couldn't have one in being good? You couldn't have good something unless you had good something and something as well.
You can't have governance if you don't have the right.
Well, you can have governance, it just might not be good. So
yes.
What about, you can't have what then? You can't have good governance.
Support?
No. What are the 3 things that go together? I said as an umbrella term, if you always keep those 3 things happening together in your head.
It's government's risks and compliance. I got your back, Leonard.
Got your back, bro. Okay? You've got your back.
That's good. He's stepping up, so he needs to do it.
Yeah. So remember, when you're thinking of compliance, yes, it's compliance, but it's governance and risk as well. Okay? Because if you don't fix all of them, you're compliant. If someone has hired you as a compliance officer and you just can't get that compliance happening because people aren't focusing on governance and they're not focusing on risks, your compliance is never going to be right. It's not, if all the other things aren't lining up. Okay. So what we're going to do is, so you've all downloaded your sheets. Has everyone got, you've got a computer, obviously, you've got a keyboard in front of you, Gavals? Yep. So somebody can be the scribing person. So if you're in separate rooms, the Gavals will have to be together. So there's 4 people. So that's one group. And then we've got the rest of you are all in separate, like you're not in the same rooms together, are you? Like you're in separate places. So we know Jo is on her own. So we'll be having one group. Let's not put Leonard and Umesh together because they work together. So we'll put them separately, right? Okay. So Ali, let's distribute. No, before we distribute people, Ali will put you into groups in a minute. But first of all, I want to have a look. Let's have a look. I'm going to open one myself of our. Now I've broken the core module up into its 4 divisions on worksheets. Okay, and I've made a little worksheet for us. So the one I'm going to go to is I'm going to keep the governance separate because I think that's a tough one to give to anyone. So we're going to save the governance. I think we'll do the governance a bit together. So I'll open governance now, and the other 3 will be the ones I give to you guys in groups. So bear with me while I just I should have all 4 of these open and they just don't seem to be. Core module explained. Goodness me. I guess it's because it's recording. It doesn't want to move. The screen doesn't want to move. So I'm just going to open up governance because we're going to do that one together. I'm not going to send you off to do that on your own. So I'll just share. Is everyone with me? All right. So this is the little workshop that I want you to do. So what I've done is this is division 2. It is governance and operational management, right? Division 2. So we looked at the 4 divisions. You know what the overall names of those divisions are. So Rights and responsibilities refers to rights and responsibilities of your clients or your participants. And it unpacks what it looks like to have compliance with rights and responsibilities. Division 2 is provider governance. This unpacks what it would look like to have compliant governance and operational management in place. Division 3 is provisions of support, and it unpacks by way of indicators what it would look like to have compliant provision of supports, and same for Division 4. The indicators unpack what it would look like. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to do a couple of examples here. So what I've got is, you can see we've got, here is Module 2. Here is the first standard in Module 2 in the second column. And here is just a number. And this is the little indicator. This is what's saying it will look like if you've got compliance. So what I want you to do is think about the organisations that you're working for. And I want you to be able to say, let me take one, for example. Who wants to put their hand up? I won't force anyone. Just say, okay, who wants to just talk about their organisation? Can I get someone to put their hand up and say, yeah, it'll be me?
I'm happy to talk for training purposes.
Who is it?
I'm happy to talk for training purposes.
Is this
Me,
you?
Vicky?
Vicky?
Vicky, yeah.
Vicky, let's do it. Okay, Vicky. So we're doing governance at the moment because that's the hardest one. That's why I'm doing it. So to have compliance in governance, your organisation would have opportunities provided by the governing body, which will be management or governing body, for people with a disability to contribute to the governance of the organisation and have input into the development of organisational policy and processes relevant to the provision of supports and the protection of participant rights. How is your organisation compliant with that?
We are non-compliant, as far as I'm concerned, which is a quality improvement. However, we do have a form, which is the feedback form, that allows the participants to give feedback. But a lot of participants cannot do the feedback from the system. So what I'm wanting to do is to have a person that can actually speak with staff to give with participants to give feedback. But we've got forms, but not everybody can fill it. So what I'm lacking is for people to speak and somebody captures the information.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. So Vicky has said that she doesn't think that her organisation is compliant in this regard. So now I just want to ask, so are you saying that the only thing you have is that feedback form and that it's just not accessible? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that most of the times when somebody does a complaint, they can send it through an email, they can make a phone call, and they can use the form. But
that's a complaint. So that's a complaint. So let's come back to what this says, which is that opportunities are provided by the governing body for people with a disability to contribute to the governance of the organisation and have input into the development of policies and procedures relevant to provision of supports. So it's not asking about just complaints. Complaints is one mechanism of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've got a form, but you're saying that the feedback isn't really coming because they can't access it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we've got some people just making random phone calls and maybe would give you feedback, and then we put that in a complaints form. But the way I'm understanding this is that they must contribute to the policy and our procedure because it's about them. So I'm assuming that I'll need to have meetings or sort of a clinical, but a bit of a governance from their end, which we don't have, but we need to work on. Let's just say we've got 12 participants in sealed houses. We invite them to a meeting and maybe say, or they come to their own meeting and speak about the way they feel about the service.
So what Vicky is saying is that what she wants to do and what compliance would look like is have what do we call it? Service user meetings.
Yeah.
Have service user meetings where they can attend and contribute on any areas they feel they need to. No, I'll add to that. So what it might look like is when you've got a SIL house or any SIL houses or many, one of the ways for best practice to contribute from the ground up is to have what's called, you know, a resident or consumer or participant house group. And this is their group and their group only. And a staff member can attend, but the talk is for them. This isn't for staff to talk about their problems with the house. This is for that group to be empowered to speak about what they like, what they don't like, and what they'd like changed. Now, what do you think happens with that information that is noted in an agenda? Remember, we want an agenda. What do you think happens with that information once it's collected on a monthly basis or whatever it is going to be, weekly, monthly, fortnightly? What do you think happens with that information?
We save it onto our system, give it back to the participant so they see the minutes of the meeting, and then we keep it in the house so that in case family want to see the minutes, then we feed it back to them. So yeah, so we save it for ourselves, give a copy to the house and give a copy to the participant.
And then the actioning. What does the actioning look like? Yeah. What does the actioning look like? Where does it go after that? So we've had a resident meeting, we've got an agenda, it's got actions, you've circulated the notes from that meeting. Now what are you going to do with it?
What we normally do is that...
Well, don't worry about what you're going to do. What's the perfect situation you're going to do?
For somebody to look at the operations manager, which is myself, looks at it and sees before the next meeting whether the action items were done. So yes, I look into the actions myself.
So really it should go up the line in management meetings, shouldn't it? So yeah, so perfect, but good governance would mean it would progress up the line of meetings and decisions made on whether these were doable, if they need any policy changes.
Yeah.
Or if there were, what else is in there? Yeah, basically that's it. So you really need to show the process of where they're going to go, not just that they're taken, we give them a copy, a manager has a look at them. More than that, it needs to go up that line of a meeting where they're recorded, not just one person looking at them. You know, have it on your agenda so that it's, you know, if you've got house groups happening, then that should be going all the way up the line so it doesn't get lost. When it sticks with one person, the chances of it being lost are high. Yeah, so
when it sticks with one person. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So system, and that's why those agendas will save you. If you use those standard agenda items and you just add on your own agenda items, by all means, but if you never forget those agenda items, and this is, which one of those, come back to here, I'm sharing, aren't I? Yeah. Which one of these do you think fits what you're doing right there? Here's your W2. You're trying to improve something, aren't you? So what fits here? Which one of these are you actually going to call the agenda item for what you're doing?
Feedback and complaints.
It could be feedback and complaints. Absolutely, it could. Or it could be quality management. It'll fit in either. It'll fit in either. Absolutely. Yeah. Because under quality management sits continuous quality improvement. Okay. All right. So either one of those would be fine, but make it an agenda item because it will slip off your radar so fast. Yeah. So a perfect situation. So Vicky's been very participatory.
Agenda item to get the participants.
Vicky's been very participatory in letting us know what she does, which is great. And she's just found, as we often do, that the access is a barrier. It's hard for people to fill them out. It's too much. So what else can we do? You know, we can have face-to-face or somebody helping people to interpret the information so you can gather the intel. Yep. But also what I often hear is where people have houses, please give the power back to the people in the house. It's their house. Let them have. One time they said, oh yes, we have a house meeting and the staff member does this and we talk about that. And I went, don't talk about your stuff in the house. House meetings is for them. This is their home. And if you were in a home where you were living with other people, you would come together and just talk about whether things are going okay. It's for them. So giving people the opportunity to do that. So the other thing that you might have in the good situations is annual or biannual, what do you call it? Surveys. Yep, that go out to your staff and to your participants, not just your participants. So you might have these planned, they may be documented as scheduled things. So essentially, this is what a good answer would look like. So when you're looking around and doing internal audits or running business, etc., or even reporting to your manager, which some of you are the manager, these are the sort of things that you would want to be looking at having for a really good compliance in this area. Opportunities provided by the governing body for people with a disability to contribute to the governance of the organisation and have input into the development of organisational policy. Basically, it's saying, what are these guys saying about the way we run this organisation? Are they liking it or do they want something changed? So that's what it's saying. Okay, let's do another one. And I'm going to do an example. So a defined structure is implemented by the governing body to meet the governing body's financial, legislative, regulatory and contractual responsibilities and to monitor and respond to quality and safeguarding matters associated with delivering supports. So the key things to focus on here are a defined structure. What does that mean? Who wants to tell me? Who wants to tell me what a defined structure is?
Maybe the staff and all other members working for the companies, it can be called as the structure.
Yep. I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, but have an organizational structure.
Yeah.
If you don't front up with an organization, if you're running a business right now without an organizational structure, you are already a non-conformity here and it's a little bit silly. Okay. So a defined structure is implemented by the governing body, owner, manager. Wherever you see governing body, it is just the owner or the manager, yeah, or the board of management.
Yeah.
Yep, to meet the body's financial, legislative, regulatory and contractual responsibilities and to monitor responding to. Now, what is it that I've been talking about that meets this instantly if you can show them? What have I said to have?
Is it an organogram? Is it an organogram? What is that thing?
So if the governing body means, okay, you've got an organizational structure, right? And then it's saying you've got an organizational structure in place show them that by an organizational structure on a piece of paper, yeah, to meet the governing body's finance, legislative, regulatory, contractual responsibilities, and to monitor and respond to quality safeguarding. If you show them that you've got an agenda that follows all of those things that we talked about in Division 2, then you're showing them that.
Gina, is she asking us a question?
Makes sense? Coming back to here.
Yeah.
You said your agenda is going to have these items on it, plus all the ones that you need for yourselves. Okay. So that's what you need to have. Okay. So coming back to here. So breaking that down, a defined structure is implemented. Do you have an organizational chart? Yes or no? If you don't, then you won't meet this standard. So
Yes,
you've got to have a chart. Agenda that follows all the Division 2 items, you are going to meet the rest of these. Okay. All right. So the next one is the skills and knowledge required for the governing body to govern effectively are identified. What does that mean? That first bit. What does that mean? They're identified. What is that asking me to show them?
It shows that people know what they're doing.
Yeah. So, but this one's saying the skills and knowledge required for the governing body, the management team, are identified. What is it asking them to show you? What is it asking you to show them? The auditor.
Job description?
Yep. A PD. Yep.
Yeah.
It's asking for a job description. No job in your organization should be without a job description. However, this one, Division 2, is all about the managers. Every manager, every team leader, every owner operator must have a job description. Now, the next part of it says, and relevant training is undertaken by members of the management team to address their gaps. How are you going to show them that you know what the gaps are? How are you going to show them that?
Okay, I'm a bit distracted with this. Let me hear what she's saying. Gina, sorry, can you just repeat to me? I was just in the middle of
the second part of this particular governance standard says, and the relevant training is undertaken by members of the governing body to address gaps. So first of all, you need to say, how are you going to show them that you've looked for gaps? How can you show them that you've looked for gaps?
Well, I think there's a conversation that HR needs to have with people, and therefore they can identify their gaps, obviously from their KPI. Yeah, I think it's got to go through HR.
It will be through
so what you're saying is, if people aren't meeting their KPIs, if they have any, if people are not meeting their KPIs, that's fine, that's good. Then they've got gaps. But if they don't have KPIs, what's another way you would be uncovering what that person's gaps in knowledge are?
Taking the feedback from the clients, parallelly reviewing his performance as well.
Yeah, you might get feedback from clients that says they didn't know what they were doing. Also, what's that other thing that has to happen annually?
Performance review.
Performance review. These are the things that are going to show you. And also you can even discover that in supervision meetings. Okay, so that is what a perfect answer to that question would look like. Okay, so that's governance. So nothing I give you is going to be as hard as governance. All right, so coming down to here, the risk management system covers each of the following: incidents, complaints, financial management, governance and operational, human resource, information management, work health, safety and emergency and disaster. Where are you going to put these items so that you know they're talked about on a regular basis? Where will you put them?
Agendas,
Where?
meeting agendas.
And one other place.
Funny, I normally put it on our software, our Connect team, where I give information to all the staff, like an internal communication system.
Yep, that's cool. That's good. So these items right here, I have them on my corporate risk register. So these items are categories on my corporate risk register because what's the chance that you will remember as a compliance manager or business owner getting ready for audit? What's the chance that you're going to remember, my risk management system needs to cover off on this, and this, and this. The chance that you'll remember that is slim, but when it's on an agenda or it's one of the categories in a compliance management system, such as, and we'll open it, because this is your giveaway today. If I could just remember where I'm going, here we are. See, what I do is I have tools to back up tools. So on my compliance management system, we have a corporate risk register. Is everyone still seeing what I'm seeing? Good. So if you look at my corporate risk register, you will see that it has categories, right? Because that said, remember it said it's about looking at the standard and going, what's it asking of my organization? It's saying my risk management system must incorporate at minimum these things, right? That's what it's saying. So what I did is you build this so that it tailors to the scheme or the standards. So if you look here, all of these include, there's more than just those, but it absolutely includes what it's talking about: finance, human resource, participant skills, emergency disaster, data security, legislation. But everything you saw here is absolutely included in your corporate risk register. And that's the way you start to tie things together and build systems so that it's always being collected. Whether it's here or whether it's in the agenda as well is completely up to you. But we tie these things in with systems, okay? So coming back to here, here's one I want you to think about, and I specifically want you to think about this one. Under risk management, it says the supports and services of my service are provided in a way that is consistent with our risk management system. Now, here's our risk management system. We've said that we're going to, I always say to people, you need to have at least a minimum of 2 of every one of these categories in your risk management system. But this is where you theorize on what your actual risks are and what your potential risks are. So coming back to here, the question here is, and this is a question I want you to be asking yourselves all the time in working in compliance or management: supports and services I deliver or I oversee are provided in a way that is consistent with the risk management system that I have in place. If I've completed my corporate risk register and I know what all my risks are, etc., I've chosen to find and drill down and just figure out as many risks as I possibly can and identify ways of avoiding those risks. How would you answer that? So I want somebody to put their hand up and tell me what would it look like if your services of the organization you're in, Joe, for example, because you run your own business, what will it look like, Joe, if you are providing supports and services in a way that is consistent with your risk management system. It's exactly what I just said. So tell me what you do now if you want to, but then.
Like the other gentleman said, we've got to all my staff, all not being many, I'm a small business, but we basically have a QR code for all our different templates and all our information. So they go to that QR code. They can update immediately into the database in regards to any risks or anything, to be honest, across the board for all the clients, all risks, incidents, right down to, you know, if there's a plate that needs replacing in the kitchens. Yeah, we try and cover everything. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of risk, so you've got a staff, all staff have a QR code, and they're attached to all different types of templates, and they report risks and observations, you know, around risk and unsafe things straight into the system that goes into the form and into the register, no doubt. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And this now what happens to it after that?
It goes straight to me and my admin, and we assess it, basically assess what's gone on and what's happened, and then we fix it as well. We're very hands-on.
Okay.
As best we can.
And do you have a timeline on how long you'll answer? You know, give yourself this will be, we make sure that from the time it hits our inbox to the time it gets our attention is how long?
Oh, we do it. We try and do it immediately, but definitely within 24 hours.
Okay. Now, if you didn't have an outline of all of these risks in a corporate risk register, what would you look to know what it was that you were trying to avoid happening?
My previous experience has been doing risk assessment for youth for outdoor adventure camps.
Yeah. So do you have one of these?
No, I don't. I've got my version of that. This is a much better version than mine.
But you've got something. You've got something.
Yeah. It's based on the education department's actual risk assessment, though, rather than.
Okay. So if I asked you, does your risk assessment, one of these, cover emergency and disaster? Remember, going back to the standard, participant related. Does it cover human resources? Does it cover what was the other one in there? Finance. And I know from other standards that I haven't shown you yet that we also have to have what else was there? Ali, are you there? Oh, she might have gone.
No, yes, I am. Sorry, I couldn't click the button in time. What was the question?
So we have just what was back in here.
Oh.
Governance. I didn't click governance. Oh, complaints. Work health safety. Hang on, I'll go back. So this is because this is what it's saying is the bench is compliance, and it's complaints here. Oh, we've already got a complaints one anyway.
Financial.
I think I hit financial.
And you got financial, yeah.
I did.
Human resource, information management.
So here, at a minimum, because there's more throughout the standards, have you done a bit of a theorizing on what your risk is in relation to these things?
I have, but in regard to the finance one, what is it? What with the So when
so here it says
financial risk.
Yep. So here it is. So it says the risk management system covers each of the following incidents. Well, that can be an incident register, complaints and management resolutions. That can be a complaint register or a big finance. We've seen where we ticked that. Governance, human resources. Oh, information. I should have done data. I should have ticked data. Most people have a work health safety register anyway. So you can see that most of these, not all of them, but most of them actually can fit within a risk management system. So if yours, for all of you, is not including those things, then you won't be delivering services, because you can't answer that question with a yes, can you? You know, if you can't answer that question, my risk management system covers off on each of these. the answer will be no. Yeah. So the ways to do it are that these can be discussed at meeting for sure, but you'll also never get away with not having a corporate risk register, or whether it's in Excel or whether it's in a software, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So, and then alternately, you could also show your complaint register, your incident register, and your work health safety register. So you can see that would be a perfectly compliant answer. Okay, something like that. So governance is a bit of a tough one, and we're not going to harp on governance, but I did want you to see some. Are there any other aspects of governance that you'd like to see unpacked as well before we go into a little breakout on other areas, not governance? Is there something around some of those standards that you thought you found a bit
continuous improvement?
Yeah, people often ask about that because I think unless you worked in it, it's difficult. So what I can tell you about continuous improvement is that there is a quality, as you know, there is a quality standard in the Division 2, but also continuous improvement will rear its head in other standards. So it rears its head, and you need to know this, that in relation to there's quality management, and the continuous improvement will be mentioned in here, but it also comes up in complaints right here down the bottom. It says in complaints that your incident management system you make improvements based on turn off the mic, someone. Here we are, demonstrated continuous improvement in complaints feedback. So you have that in the complaint standard, not just the overarching quality standard that talks about quality management and continuous improvement. Feedback and complaints has its own, and then you'll find incident management says exactly the same. So let's do that in relation to here. And the first thing I want to tell you about quality improvement or continuous improvement, I want you to think about continuous improvement or quality improvement being an ocean. And what flows into an ocean? Can you guys tell me?
Rivers.
Any risk or change?
Yes. Yeah. Rivers, lakes, all that sort of thing. But you were giving me the real one, weren't you? So tell you that's really good. So on so just say it again, which of our so if our quality improvement register right here, if our quality improvement register, and if you see it before me, Ali, just tell me. If our
the quality improvement,
continuous quality improvement register, if that's our ocean, and somebody I think already said that there could be a lake called Complaints Lake, yeah? There could be a lake called Feedback. There could be another lake. There's another one that someone hasn't said. What other lakes will flow into that quality improvement ocean?
I will say everything that you do goes in there.
Good. Yeah, I like that. So I always say the main ones are incidents, complaints, risk, work health safety, but truly almost anything can. Anything that you find from the data you collect that it requires an improvement. Yep. But mostly you will find a lot, the biggest ones are the big lakes that flow straight into the ocean, complaints, incident, work health safety, and risk. But there's smaller ones, and that can be anything. Yeah. It could be right down to support planning. It could be down to the person-centered emergency stuff. It could be down to anything at all, medication handling. But the biggest ones are always going to be your complaints. So let me go back to that one and show you what I would write as the perfect thing. So demonstrated continuous improvement in complaints and feedback managed by regular review of complaints and feedback policy and procedures. seeking of participant views on the accessibility of complaints and management. So there's a lot to unpack in there. So the perfect thing, we break that down, demonstrated continuous improvement. We have an active continuous improvement register, which is informed through complaints, incidents, feedback surveys, house groups, yep, we've covered off on those. And so we've covered off on agent regular review complaints, feedback, regularly reviewing it. Now, how do we prove that we're regularly reviewing? Remember how it's going to tie back. What is going to prove and be a system for you that you are regularly reviewing it? What is that thing that I told you about that can show that you have been regularly reviewing it? What is it? We've talked about it heaps at different levels.
What's the question exactly?
Okay. What it says here, demonstrated continuous improvement in complaints and feedback management by regular review of the complaints and feedback, policies, procedures, etc., etc. What is that template that is going to show that you're regularly reviewing things?
Oh, the I don't know what you call that template.
Meeting agendas?
Yeah.
Yep, standing agenda items, that's right.
Yeah.
So seeking participant views, yep, we've already done that by saying that we are going to have feedback service. We've also got a participant house meeting. We're looking and reviewing we've got an active, we'd have to have an active, we have an active CQI register, which is informed through active complaint register, active, and remember, inactive is not going to work. Active incidents, active feedback survey process, and house groups, and reviewed at all levels of the org via agenda items and meeting minutes, and which is at all levels, So you can kind of see the kind of processes that you need to have in place to be able to have something meeting this indicator, this standard. You will find that on just about all of, pretty much a lot of these standards, training will be required. Training is required on violence, abuse, exploitation. Training is required for staff on incident management. Training is required for staff on complaint handling. Training is required for staff on emergency and disaster. Training is required for staff on, what else have we got, Ali?
Mealtime management.
Mealtime management. We have a list of those things that require in the core module that require a mandatory training, don't we, Ali?
Yes, we do have a list.
Could you pop that? I might just get you to pop that into the PowerPoint that I'm going to give everyone just on the last page, if you would.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Okay, that's enough of that. Now I'm just going to want you to have a go at doing this together. What I want is not your organization. I want you to put a perfect scenario. I just want you to do, I'm going to break you up, give you non-governance in there, and I want you to put a perfect scenario. So the question is going to ask you, the question is saying, at the direction of the participant, the culture, diversity, values, and beliefs of that participant are identified and sensitively responded to, I want you to tell me how in a perfect world you think that you could do that. Not what you do now, just give me the perfect scenario, the made up one, okay? Because I want to see what you can come up with, okay? So choose a worksheet. It doesn't matter which one you choose, but you can choose governance if you want, but I think it's pretty hard going, but do choose it. Ali's going to break you up into groups. The Gaval community services will stay together and the rest will just do randomly. We'll put you in groups of whatever the numbers tell us we need to do. And we're popping around to the rooms. We're going to pop in there and see how you're going, both me and Ali. And I just want to see you have a go at taking the information that you've learned about evidences and try to compile what a perfect scenario in column E, what a perfect scenario would be to meet the indicator. You can choose whichever indicator you want in the worksheet I give you, but let's have a go at doing that in groups if you would, and then I can give you some feedback when we come back.
No work experience.
Oh, you're back. Good. Okay, so let's start with because I worked with the other group. So Gaval community, do you want to go first and present your indicators and what you found to be best practice, what you interpreted, what you've given us as a conforming statement for that particular indicator? Can't hear you.
Hello, Gina. Hello, Gina. Yeah, I think for us, our intake assessment is quite important. The intake assessment will actually feed into the clinical care plan if we do the proper assessment, the likes, the cultural needs, and the care plan. So that is, as soon as we get the service agreement, then we start a baseline assessment, which we've got, and that will give us the support plan.
Okay, lovely. Have you got the indicator there? Can you read us out the indicator and then your summary?
Where is it? All righty. Does anyone want to talk more than?
Yeah, so for we have taken the example for division 3, provision of supports for 0.3.1.1.
Okay,
so
and read the indicator for us because we haven't got it up in front of us, and then tell us what your perfect scenario was. Yeah.
Yeah, so we took the indicator that we need to take the initial assessment for every participant, to know about their language, to know about their personal details, so that we can have the documents that they are okay with sharing such information.
Is there a possibility that you could share it with us so that we can see? Because we didn't see the indicator. Can we see it?
How do we share?
Just give me a second, like.
How do we share?
Share. Just hit the share button and.
Down the bottom, the green share button. Share screen down the bottom.
Share screen, yes.
Share it. No. How do we share? Alphonse, tell us how do we share?
Well, that's a really good question.
We can't share it.
Okay,
yes,
just
yes.
read the. Oh, here we go. It's happening. There we go. Oh, okay. So this is your one, 3.1.1. The supports available. So what are the supports available? And any access or entry criteria, including any associated costs, are clearly defined and documented. This information is communicated to each participant using the language, mode of communication, and terms that the participant is likely to understand. So you've said you do an initial assessment for every participant, the mode of communication, whether it's verbal or written, etc. What's a TAT?
A TAT period, like once we onboard the participant, we need to complete this information within 48 hours, like.
Okay. And the accountability is the client. So tell me about the quality of the characteristics of this. So I'm going to break it down for you. So this is saying that this is about access to supports. And what it's saying is that every client should know what they're up for. And we have a schedule of supports to do that, right? So that's taken care of. But the supports available and any access or entry criteria, including any costs, are clearly defined and documented. So that indicator also speaks to how does a client know what supports you offer? And this often comes down to what's on your website and what are your pamphlets that you make available to people, and making sure that they're in a language that they can actually access and understand. So at its very best practice, you would see someone with accessible websites. You know, I mean, I haven't got websites for people who have a hearing loss myself, but that would be at its very best. But making sure that whatever you're communicating to the person, if they have a cognitive disability, you make allowances for that. If they have sight impairment, you make allowances for that. So the actual indicator is saying the supports available and any access and entry criteria, including associated costs, are clearly defined and documented. This information is communicated to each participant using a language, mode of communication, and terms that the participant is likely to understand. So that might be, it really comes down to the brochure and the website, the look and feel and ease, and the fact that they can see, okay, I want to have a service with Gaval Community Services, but I go to their website and I fill out a form, and then I find that they don't actually deliver services to my age group. So the access is literally about access. Yeah. And this indicator is trying to make sure that providers really outline what they do provide and what they don't provide. Okay. All right. So you need to make sure that that's what that is about. Okay. So really, what's all the noise? Who's got the noise?
Can you just mute? Yeah, can you just mute a minute? All that moving around.
Yeah, that's what it was. Or was it? No. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But okay. So the next one, Shiva's finding that funny or something funny.
Yeah, my sound was funny.
But we do want to see your paper. Can't we have your paper back up again?
They've muted.
Okay. Let's go to one of yours.
Okay.
All right. I'll put it up and share it. This is you. Nope. Or no, this is you. I'm not sharing at the moment, am I?
No.
Share screen. All righty. So who's the spokesperson for you guys? You want me to be?
Yeah, okay, I'll go. I'll put my hand up.
So we've done, so these guys have chosen rights and responsibilities, okay?
Yep. So do you want me just to read it out for starters, Gina?
Read the indicator first, because often I'm going to keep leading people back. When people go off track, and which is what happens sometimes, is people interpret it as something where it wasn't actually, that's not what it's saying. So read the indicator out.
Each participant's legal and human rights are understood and incorporated into everyday practice. So an intake handbook is given out. Basically, when onboarding is done with the mission values, which are explained, we give the book and explain it at the same time. So it's not just handed to them and expected for them to go and read it. It's also explained to them at that time, including how to make complaints and incidents, and then ensuring that the indicators is, hang on, what have we got? Full range of everyday practice. And then making sure our staff are trained and in cultural and awareness of human rights, and then obviously following through with evidence of training, staff training is the certification that they've been educated in that.
Yes, exactly. And so I'll just add, guys, everybody has a handbook. Most people have a policy and procedure that meets the standard, but how are they understood and incorporated into everyday practice? That's not always done well. So thinking about how are all of these, many of these standards incorporated into everyday practice. And that's that walking around with this information in your head. Where's my evidence? What are my evidence types? You know, how am I actually addressing these? So that's where that underpinning foundational knowledge comes in. Okay. All right. So let's go back to you. Gaval, can you do your next one for us?
Gaval,
Thanking you. Let's do yours.
communication with each participant about the provision of support.
So where's our document? That's what she's asking for. We're not looking at that. She's asking for our document.
This one.
Oh yeah, let's put up your document so that we can do your next one. We'll hear about your next one.
Share.
Lovely. So this is the next one that you did, is it? Safe environment?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So did you do, each participant can easily identify workers who provide supports to them?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. Do you want to read that one, Vic?
Yeah. So we have written like indicators as inform the guardian about the support worker.
Yep.
And publish the rosters and send the hard copy of the weekly rosters to the SIL houses as well as the participant houses. That's
really good. And I've actually never had anyone say informing the guardian about who the support workers are going to be. So that's pretty good. But also don't forget to say in these, you'd have a compliant policy and procedure, which most people do, but they don't have the practice. And yeah, that's really good. Circulating rosters, making sure that the guardian knows who the support worker is going to be. And now this is really important because the most important part of it is about the person being able to identify the worker. And there's one thing that is mandatory in this. Can you think what it is?
Identity card, and this can also help in this.
Say it again.
Identity card.
ID card.
Identity card.
Yeah. But those other two things I hadn't seen before, so I thought that's really good. You guys, Gaval.
Can I just ask a question regarding the ID card? Yeah. So I have a couple of, early 20s. And they are clients, and they are adamant when they go out their support workers, they don't want to look like they're with support workers.
Yep.
So the ID cards, are down the shirts or whatever, because we've got to, meet what their requirements are, what they would like. Is that legally okay?
That they hide it down their shirt?
Yes, because the client is. Yeah, there's
as long as the client knows who they are.
Yeah, so there's no other NDIS rule that says if we're out, we've got to, right.
I think that's really kind. And the other thing we should have mentioned in our question about, we haven't done it yet, which is the personal privacy. We'll get to that now, so we'll do that next. Actually, one thing I didn't think about was some people do not like going out in a vehicle that's got branding on it. Now, some people don't care, but other people do. So it's just be mindful, that's all. So we'll go back to sharing, but that was good, guys. So we'll go back to sharing the last one, and we'll finish up after this one and then just have any questions.
What I want to say, in the service agreement, right,
Yep.
you should be able to, Joe, ask your participant whether they do consent to having somebody in a uniform, and that's what we do, or in an ID card. So what some of our participants, they say, never would you come in uniform to me. I don't want to look like a border support worker. It's there. And then we put that in the support plan. We've got more clients that they want to look like they're with their girlfriends or boyfriends when they go out.
Yeah.
They want to look cool. But then we've got some clients who are like, I feel safe when I'm with somebody with the badge because I know Gavala's just not send me a random person. I've got anxiety. I'm afraid. I've been, you know, so we like to get that feedback.
I really like that.
So I think we're doing it now in our service agreement, and they say, and you know, most of our clients say, I feel safe, and there's a 50% who will say, I don't feel safe when I have somebody with the uniform. And I've had a couple who the husband says, you've got to come in uniform, I'll send you back. Maybe you're coming to flirt with my wife, Shiva. So look like you're a worker, don't look like you. So I like those feedbacks, and they give you their reasoning.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's really good, and I'm going to suggest it to other people too, that they ask them up front, are they offended by the uniform, or do, you know, what's their preference? And I think, you know, that's really, you know, I think that's really good. And I haven't heard of anyone doing that. Maybe they are doing it, they just haven't told me. But I really like that too. So we would add, I think we should add, you know, add that to ours as well. So coming back here to, so some really good stuff. Where are we? I had it. No, I'm in the other one now, aren't I?
And
so
you're not sharing, by the way.
Oh, I'm not sharing. All right, here we go. Maybe, Joe, do you want to ask one of your teammates to read this one out?
Who will I throw under the bus? Shiva, you look like you're up for it.
Go for it. Shiva, are you still there?
Oh, you're on mute. He's embarrassed.
Oh, he talks all right when he's not being put on the spot.
Sorry.
You good? So you do 1.3.1. So these guys did privacy and dignity as their next one. So have a readout, Shiva.
Yeah, like the indicator can be consistent processes and practices are in place that respect and protect the personal privacy and dignity of each participant. And how can we get into compliance with that? Means we can have our plans and policies in the place. We can provide training to our staff and be trained ourselves, and the clients to be empowered to understand their view of privacy and dignity, because we have to make understand to our clients, because they are our main asset. That's why we need to empower them, and we have to make them understand what is their personal privacy means and dignity means. And we have to understand from their perspective within which level of privacy they want to have themselves in, because some female who are old age female, they can be okay with male support workers, but some of them literally they hate when male workers are with them. So it must be customized in order to respect their personal privacy and dignity. And the other is like here the best practice is like surprise checks. Yeah, the main thing is like to reach out to the compliance. For that purpose, we can have surprise visit on the client's house to see how the workers are acting on it. We can see from our eyes whenever we go for the surprise visit. And we can ask client during the onboarding itself about their privacy details and their dignity. What are their preference? That will make us easy to have compliance on this topic.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Shiva. And what I don't know if you guys have heard about the Speak Out resources on the NDIS Commission's website. But they're available, they're videos, they're free, and you can use them in any way you like. They're for empowering participants to be able to know, you know, good service, comfortable service, be able to speak out when they want to speak out. We've turned them into modules via our LMS, and they're there on the Commission's website for anyone to do whatever they want with them. And I think that's one way we can really contribute to, helping people to learn and be empowered to speak out and ask for what they want. So look, really good, guys, and it takes a bit of practice getting used to seeing your entire business processes through that. What's expected of me here when I do this? If I just do a quick job on this, will I have to come back in 6 months or a year and fix it all up? What are my evidences? How are my evidences? What's it going to look like 6 months down the track when I'm looking for evidence that I've done this? So just being really aware of those things and knowing that if you're in anything from a team leader position upward, Division 2 should be your best friend. You should make Division 2 part of your everyday thinking. And that is, like I said, your governance, your Division 2, your governance, etc., which includes your HR and your compliance and your complaints, etc. Remember, it's your compliance framework, it's your risk framework, it's your quality framework, it is your reporting framework as well. So remember, it's all those things just in the one framework. So that PowerPoint I will send out to you in the hope that you might be using it for onboarding for people, and of course the free tool that we want to give you, which we looked at briefly, which was a compliance management system. I know Gaval probably already have one from me, but you guys, the rest of you, I don't think do. So that'll be a good resource. And any questions, comments, and conversation?
I find it interesting. I think from what I'm getting, Gina, from when I look at my deficits at Gaval, what I'm seeing is the poor input from clients, and I really want to work on it. So thank you for highlighting it. Very often we sort of have got a lot of policies and processes, but that actually come from a governance perspective that doesn't include clients. So moving forward, the one thing I'm going into really work hard on is bringing the client's voice into the company.
Yeah, bring the client's voice in, have it on, make your life easier, not harder. Have things like those standing agenda items at every level of staff meeting to make your life easier. Yeah, so you're not having to run around looking at how am I going to collect this information and that information. Just have them there. Have them there so it's already collecting for you, creating those good habits. And I might even send out the agendas as well so that you can kick off with, using them to. So that's it. I mean, it's really a lot easier than you thought it would be, and that fundamental knowledge you'll be able to apply to any part of the service, to any standard or indicator. If everything you do, you think through it in that process, governance, risk, compliance, my reporting lines, you'll do okay.
Gina, in terms of our hierarchy, I've often seen companies putting clients
at the top.
Like you know how we've got the managers and then the next level and the next level. So obviously, can we put a client almost somewhere?
Put it at the top. We've been looking at an organisation in Western Australia, and they've got their clients at the top. And I think, although at that moment it's tokenistic, at that moment it's symbolic, the more you do it, the more it becomes the reality. If the participants are at the top and then the director is underneath that, it's putting out a message and changing a behaviour that we do answer to our participants. They're our.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it once and I loved it, and I think. And I always, we know it's tokenistic to start with, but tokenistic moves to, eventually, if you do it long enough and care about it, it moves to a change in practice.